Hello, I'm Suzanne from Reconnecting You, and today I want to talk about something that can feel like a huge missing piece when you're living with ongoing fatigue, exhaustion, burnout, and chronic fatigue. Sometimes your exhaustion isn't only about what you are doing now. Sometimes it's about what your body has been carrying for a very long time. And I want to say right at the start that this is not about blaming somebody or something. It's not about digging into painful memories, and it's not about forcing yourself to revisit things that simply feel like they're too much. It's a way of adding a layer of understanding about an aspect that you may not have realized is one of the things that's driving your fatigue. It's very easy to see your fatigue and exhaustion as purely a physical issue. I mean, of course, it is. Fatigue is a physical issue. You feel it in your body. You feel it when your legs are heavy. You feel it when your brain feels foggy. You feel it when the things that you used to do now feel like, I don't know, climbing a mountain. But you need to know that your nervous system also plays a key role within fatigue. Your nervous system is the part of you that's constantly looking out for and asking, am I safe? Can I relax? Do I need to protect myself? Do I need to keep going? Do I need to be on alert? And if your system has spent years trying to protect you emotionally, that also uses up energy too. So your chronic fatigue, your exhaustion, your burnout may not be a physical weakness. It may be the cost of prolonged emotional survival. One of the places this often shows up is in people who are highly sensitive. Highly sensitive people tend to feel their world very, very deeply. They pick up emotional atmospheres. They notice tension. They feel pressure intensely. They're the people that walk into a room and immediately are able to sense that something is off. You might be somebody who notices when someone else is disappointed. You might sense conflict before anyone has really said anything. You might be the person who replays conversations in their mind afterwards and thinks, should I have said that? Did I upset them? Could I have handled that situation any differently? And none of this means that there's anything wrong with you. It just means that your system is processing a lot more than people who are not sensitive. Because highly sensitive people often absorb emotional environments. And this is what becomes so exhausting over a long time. Another pattern that often sits alongside this is a suppressing of your own feelings in order to keep the peace. Maybe someone suggests something, and inside you're thinking, gosh, that is about the last thing that I want to do. But outwardly you say, yes, that's fine. Not because you're being false, but because keeping the peace actually feels like the safer option. And you very often do it subconsciously. You're not aware that that's what's going on underneath this. You may have learned to simply go with the flow, to be easy, to be good, to not cause upset, to not disappoint anyone. But over time, this can mean that you're constantly overriding your own needs and wants. And then there is the pattern of pushing beyond what your body can comfortably sustain. You keep going, you manage, you cope, you hold everything together. And from the outside, you may look capable, calm, cool, and collected, but inside, your body may be working incredibly hard just to keep you feeling emotionally safe. So I'd like to ask you very gently, have you spent years trying to cope, trying to hold everything together, trying to be acceptable, trying not to upset anyone, trying to feel safe and secure? Because if you have, that may be part of what your fatigue is trying to show you. And all of this brings us round to the topic of trauma. Now, trauma is a word that can carry a lot of weight. Many people hear the word trauma and immediately think, well, nothing that bad has happened to me. But the definition of trauma is often much broader than we tend to think of. Yes, trauma can be those big, hairy, scary things: abuse, accidents, major losses, frightening things. But it can also be repeated emotional experiences that taught your body it wasn't safe to relax. Maybe leaving you feeling like you're walking on eggshells, especially if you're around people that feel emotionally unpredictable. Maybe if you're being criticized or you feel humiliated. Maybe if you felt unseen or unsupported. Perhaps feeling that you always need to be the one who's good, who does the right thing. Or maybe you felt like you don't quite fit in or belong to the group that you're around. Maybe you had to take on responsibilities when you were very young. Maybe you've lost people or pets or relationships or your sense of safety. And often the things that affect us most were simply just our normal at the time. They were just how life was. And because of that, we don't always recognize them as traumatic, but your body may have recognized them as unsafe. And your body remembers. Not necessarily in the form of like crystal clear memories, but in the form of emotional patterns. The patterns, for example, of people pleasing, of overthinking, of shutting down when it all becomes a bit too much, of avoiding conflict, of pushing through when your body is really asking you to stop. Maybe you've got a pattern where you constantly feel responsible for everyone else. Now, each of these patterns uses up energy. So if you're living with fatigue, it might be helpful to ask, what is my body protecting me from? What emotional environments have I had to survive? What have I learned to carry quietly? And again, this is not about blame. It's about understanding why your body may be so tired. Because if your system has been on alert for years, trying to keep you safe emotionally, of course it makes sense that you feel exhausted. You aren't broken. You may simply be exhausted from carrying too much for too damn long. And the hopeful part is this: when we begin to understand what the body has been carrying, we can begin to support it differently. Not by pushing harder, not by forcing ourselves to relive anything, but by creating safety, by noticing our patterns, by allowing our nervous system to be calm, to be relaxed, and by gently exploring what still feels emotionally unfinished. So here's a reflection for you. What situations in your life drain you emotionally, even if they seem small? It might be interactions with certain people. It might be conflict. It might be the challenge of life admin. It might be being asked for something. It might be feeling criticised or ignored or judged or responsible. And then I'd like you to gently ask yourself, what feelings come up for you in that situation? Does the feeling feel familiar? Does it feel older than the situation you find yourself in? You don't need to force an answer, you just need to notice. Because sometimes the present day drain is connected to something that is much, much older. And when that begins to make sense, your fatigue can begin to make more sense too. If any of this has resonated with you, you're very welcome to explore more of my work through the links below. And I'll leave you with this final thought. What if your fatigue isn't a sign of weakness? What if it's your body asking for safety, for support, and for release?